Now, U.S. lawmakers are going after China as a currency manipulator. Again, this tends to be kind of popular in Washington. So is this legitimate, or is this just China bashing for political reasons? And also, as more people worry about a global economy risking lapsing into recession, what's going to be the tipping point, and is there any stopping it? To help me make sense of all of these big economic issues going on right now is legendary investor and author Jim Rogers. Hi, Jim. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Hello, Laura. Nice to see you.
All the way from Singapore, early in the morning for you. So tonight here in Washington, a bill actually cleared a hurdle in the Senate that would impose tariffs on Chinese imports and penalize China as a currency manipulator. Now, bashing China as a currency manipulator tends to be pretty popular in Washington, especially with unemployment stuck at 9%. So is that what we're seeing, or is this legitimate?
Lauren, first of all, they're doing this so that the media will cover it. It's the media charade, and you're covering it, as will everybody else. If you read the bill, you see that there's an out. They leave it up to the Department of the Treasury to determine what to do. But, Lauren, this could be terribly, terribly dangerous if we turn into a trade war. We had a trade war in the 1930s. It led to the Great Depression. We already have small signs of trade wars breaking out, Brazil, France, other places, now America. This could be very dangerous in the end.
Okay, Jim, I want to get back to the serious stuff, but are you saying that basically I'm a sucker?
No, I'm not saying you're a sucker. 535 people in Congress who paid a lot of money and have huge staffs pull this off. They do this, and they give it to you. No, of course it's serious. Lord, if it turns into a trade war, it is the most momentous thing of 2011. Trade wars always lead to wars. Nobody wins trade wars except, generals wind up fighting the physical wars when this happens. No, this is very dangerous. So, no, you're right to cover it. The problem is Congress is making themselves look good when, in fact, they may be having a problem. Now, to China, and are they manipulating? China certainly has set its currency at an artificial rate, but to their defense, they have been opening it up for 6 years now. Nearly every quarter, they do more and more to make the currency more internationally tradable, and it does find its own level. Would I do it the way China's doing it? No, I would do it this afternoon. I would do it right now. I'd make the currency completely free-floating. I'm not China. They don't listen to me. They don't listen to anybody.
They don't listen to you, Jim? No, I know that. I mean, their currency has risen, I think, 30% since 2005. So my question for you, you're talking about a trade war. What would happen in order for that to happen?
Well, if America does put on tariffs onto the Chinese have various weapons at their disposal. They could stop buying American government bonds. They could sell American government bonds. If they did that, interest rates in America would go through the roof. The value of the U.S. dollar would go down a lot, perhaps a lot, or at least a little. Now, this would not be good for anybody, including for China. But what happens, Laura, whenever people get slapped in the face, they always think they have to slap back.
Yeah, well, along with what you're saying with the U.S. dollar, that's something that people have been saying for a while, that the U.S. dollar is going to be hit with all of this bad economic news and in any number of scenarios, but that hasn't happened. Why is that?
Well, to full disclosure, I own the U.S. dollar. I've talked on your network before that I own the U.S. dollar. One reason it hasn't is because, first of all, there were so many people who sold the dollar that all of a sudden people find themselves too short the dollars, and they got to bring some of them back in. Second, there's chaos in the rest of the world, too, and many people, wrongly in my view, flee to the U.S. dollar as a safe haven. I own it. I don't own it as a safe haven. I own it because I just assume everybody else is going to run there. It could go much higher for a while.
So you own it because you think everybody else is dumb?
I don't know that they're dumb. That's your word. You're a good reporter, I'm sure. I own it because I know that the standard reaction is, in times of confusion, to run to the U.S. dollar. It is the wrong thing to do, in my view, but I know they're all going to do it, so I've done it. Well, I originally did it, Lauren, as I told you all before, was because everybody was so pessimistic on the dollar, and I have found in my career that when everybody is on one side of the boat, Lauren, you should go to the other side for a while. So I bought U.S. dollars because of the pessimism.
All right, because of the pessimism. There's still a lot of pessimism right now, and a lot of it has to do with debt. You're always very harsh on the U.S. because of U.S. debt. And Bill Gross of PIMCO today was saying that essentially sovereign balance sheets resemble an overweight diabetic on the verge of a heart attack. If you agree with that, what is going to be the heart attack that tips the global economy into recession?
Well, I certainly hope you agree with it too, Lauren, because the facts show that there's a very, very serious problem. The U.S. is the worst. We're the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, but many European nations have the problem. The world has run up huge, huge debts in the past 40 or 50 years. We're going to have to pay the piper, and we're paying them now. Bill happens to be exactly right. The world's got some serious, serious problems facing it, and I don't know how it's going. I know how it should be resolved, but I'm afraid it's not going to be resolved without more pain and more suffering.
So what do you think would be the tipping point with those sovereign balance sheets that are diabetics on the verge of a heart attack? Which country?
Oh, which country? I wish I were that smart. You should watch RTTV. You'll figure out which ones will go first. I'm not smart enough. I know that there are lots of them. I have sold short stocks in the U.S. and in Europe and in emerging markets. So whichever one goes first, I hope I will save myself.
Do you think it would be Europe or the U.S.?
Well, it's more likely to be in Europe just because they're right there with a lot of attention on them right now. But as I said before, the U.S. is in worse shape. The U.S. as a whole is the largest debtor nation in history, and we have a lot of independent states, Illinois, California, New York, to name a few, which are in very dire straits, just like Greece and Portugal and Ireland. So all of us in the West have serious problems.
Serious problems and serious gridlock in Washington. And one interesting solution that the former budget director, Peter Orszag, came out with was saying that, hey, maybe America needs less democracy. Maybe more of these decisions need to be made by commissions as opposed to the political institutions that have been mired in gridlock. Does he have a point?
I don't know why he thinks that government by committee is going to be any better than government by Congress. No, committees never work. I mean, if you're going to take it to the extreme, what you need is a man on a white horse who will come in and say, okay, enough of this mess, and start over. I'm not advocating that. I'm not advocating that at all. I'm just suggesting that it has happened throughout history when things get really bad. But I don't see that a committee, we've appointed a committee, Lord. They appointed a committee of 6 politicians. Now, when I say that, I laugh because 6 politicians is not going to be any better than 535 politicians.
Mm-hmm. But when it comes to economic decisions, might it be better if America had a little less democracy? I know that's not popular to say, but a lot of people said that during the financial crisis that China did better because it could just make more decisions without this political process.
Well, you always have the danger, Lord, that they make the wrong decisions. It so happened that China mainly made the right decisions in the past 30 years. Singapore, where I live, has made brilliant decisions for 40 years. But suppose you have guys making the wrong decisions. Then it's disaster. Then it's North Korea. Then it's Cuba. I don't want to live in Cuba. I don't want to live in North Korea where the decisions have been even worse. You need an someone with enlightenment who can see the problems and do it. Unfortunately, we don't have many of those people in Washington, D.C. anymore.
So you're saying that you would not trust anybody in the U.S. to make the right decisions?
I don't trust many politicians anywhere, Lauren. If I haven't made myself clear, let me say again. A pox on all of their houses. Most politicians are more worried about the next election than anything else. Lauren, the studies show that the good politicians, at least in the U.S., were people who were very good at playground when they were in school. Well, that's who we now have running things. They're good at playground, but they're not good at figuring out how to solve real problems.
Yeah, they're not real good at agreeing on anything either. But Jim, you and I agreed on a couple things, and hopefully that I'm not a sucker for covering the China story. But I so appreciate you being on the show. As always, it's a pleasure. That was author and investor Jim Rogers.